If I can get everyone to take a seat, please. We're going to go ahead and get started. Okay. We're going to go ahead and get started. So I guess I should start with, we're going to have a brief presentation that's going to be oriented here, that will be here on the TVs. There's also going to be on the ends, so if folks want to get comfortable and shift, please feel free to, but it'll be a brief part of the presentation. Welcome. My name is Ashley. I'm going to be your moderator tonight. I want to thank everyone for coming out to the first community outreach meeting on behalf of the Solid Waste and Recyclable Materials Processing Authority of Broward County. Don't ask me to say that 3 times fast. For short, we'll use Broward SWA tonight. So thank you all for coming. I know there's no place that you would all rather be this evening than here to talk about solid waste and recycling on this wonderful Wednesday evening. Tonight is about hearing. Great to see a packed house. We want to have a conversation with all of you about the future of Broward County and how we can achieve a more sustainable future for our community. It's going to have a very interactive agenda for this evening. First, we're going to hear from a few folks that are a part of the authority. We have Executive Director Todd Storty here. We also have our chairman of the authority, Mayor Ross. And then we are going to hear from Commissioner Dunn, who is a city commissioner here in Lauderhill, who is, I want to thank the city for welcoming us here tonight and opening up their community center. Once we do that, we're going to have a brief presentation just to talk about who the authority is, what are they trying to do, what are we here to talk about tonight, and what the goals are to achieve tonight. And then we're going to get into the real meat of the meeting, which is the feedback session. And that's the important part. Over an hour of our agenda this evening really is focused on hearing from all of you. So we appreciate the turnout. We appreciate everybody's interest in this issue, and this is your opportunity to really give feedback. Each one of our groups has a technical expert as well as a moderator, but we want to hear feedback from all of you because that's what this is about. And this is the first meeting of many community outreach meetings that we will be holding on this subject. So very excited, and I'm going to turn it over to Executive Director Todd Storty.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming out. I know this takes time out of your busy schedules, and everybody has a lot of other things to do than worry about solid waste, but I know that you care. You came here tonight, and we appreciate that. This is the first phase in moving this solid waste authority forward with hopefully a fully developed sustainable plan for Broward County. And we're really interested in hearing you and your thoughts this evening. Nothing's too far out there, and introduced a number of tools that we will be pushing out to the community over the next few weeks, months, including the new website that'll have the ability to work through various surveys, be able to work through listserv. We will be able to push information out, hopefully make this very interactive, and receive feedback from you, comments, concerns through that website. Thank you for attending this evening. I know this is a very long process. There's been a lot of time and effort that's been put in this over the last few years, number of years, by a number of the community. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to work with this community as we move towards what I believe is really the next step in sustainability for Broward County. Thank you for attending tonight. I think, Mayor Ross, would you like to have a few words? Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Greg Ross. I'm Mayor of Cooper City, and I'm also and proud to say the chair of the Solid Waste Authority. I have been for over 3 years now, and in those 3 years, we've accomplished a lot to the extent where we have the public here today. And if you are new, if you have not attended any of our solid waste meetings at all, any of the authority meetings, would you please stand up? The newbies, please stand up. There you go. I want to say thank you, and everyone, give them a round of applause, please. You are now part of the family because we respect your opinions. We will listen to your opinions. I hope that you will do the same to us and listen to what we have to offer. We will educate you on what we're attempting to do. You will give us your thoughts, and together we're going to come out with a wonderful product for all of Broward County. Having said that, I do need to say thank you to the elected officials, and if you're an elected official, I wish to recognize you. Please stand up, because we've got elected officials throughout the county who, believe it or not, solid waste is important to them as it is important to you, as it is important to each of our family members as we go down in the generations. It is something that we have a legacy to leave to our children and grandchildren, and it is important that we do it and we do it right. So having said that, again, I'm going to turn it back over so that the program can begin. And again, thank you very much for attending.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to let folks know this meeting has been publicly noticed. We are recording because I know we have multiple elected officials in the room and in specific breakout groups, so we are compliant and should be good to go there. I'm now going to turn it over to Daniel Deach, who is the project manager for our master plan.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us tonight. Todd, Mayor Ross, thank you for your remarks. Ashley, thank you for your remarks. We are here tonight to share with you, this is the first real public touch of the master plan project, of which I am joined by many capable partners from multiple firms that are working together to help develop the master plan for the Solid Waste Authority of Broward County that is going to look out over the next 40 years to help better manage the waste that we all generate, treat them as resources, and try to maximize the recycling for the long term and for the benefit of Broward County and its visitors. I'm going to skip through a number of items pretty quickly so that we can get to the discussion, which really is the purpose of the meeting today. If we could go to the next slide, I just want to run through the agenda so that you know what is coming before us. Okay. So we're in the welcome and introductions. I'll give a quick explanation of what the authority is and the objectives of the master plan. A little bit of background. I think it's important for our conversation to understand the context that we're living in. What the solid waste infrastructure in Broward County is today. We're also going to talk about some of the guiding principles and key policies. These are discussions that we've had as a consulting team with the executive committee to help us understand the contours of what this master plan will be viewed through and ultimately delivered for the benefit of the authority and its members. And then we're going to go into the breakout groups, and then we're going to wrap up at the very end. Next slide, please. So this slide is no longer accurate. We're still living in the period of COVID. So one of our members is not here. I hope she gets better very, very quickly. But Ashley has already introduced herself. She's part of Mercury. That's part of the SCS team that's delivering the services. I am Daniel Deitch with SCS Engineers. We are considered the prime firm, but really we're working together as a team on this project. Nicole is not here. But Leah Dombrowski is here, and she will be facilitating and working with one of the groups, and also Garth White from Arcadis, another one of our teaming partners, will be one of the subject matter experts. Next slide, please. The name of the game is agility. So I've been advised that Commissioner Dunn has just arrived, and I would like to invite her, if she is interested, to address the room and for those watching at home.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our beautiful city of Lauderhill. I am, on behalf of our Mayor, Ken Thurston, and our entire commission, I want to say welcome. This is an important issue, and it's critical that we have input from all Broward County residents so that we, the Solid Waste Authority, can create a plan that reflects what you want to see as well as what could potentially be right for Broward County. So welcome, and I invite you to be completely open and transparent and fully engaged in the entire process. And again, welcome to the city of Lauderhill. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I'm not going to spend time talking about the history of solid waste management in Broward County. I think most folks in the room understand that today is a new day. The Solid Waste Authority was established more than a year ago after several years of really, I think, some soul searching and hard work, and there was a determination that there's value in working together as member communities, and 28 of those communities came together to form an interlocal agreement that is now the Solid Waste Authority. But I'm going to start with the mission. And for any elected officials in the room, you certainly understand the role of government. And that, first and foremost, is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the communities that you serve. And that's part of the mission for this authority. The second is, and the reason that I'm speaking is, we were engaged by the authority to develop and support the implementation of a long-term, environmentally sustainable, a transparent, innovative, and economically efficient plan, right? We have to start with the plan because we all know we'll end up someplace in the absence of a plan. It just may not be where we want to be. So this is the first public touch, as I mentioned, because a lot of people probably weren't aware that this activity was going on. There is going to be a lot more public engagement over the life of this project. You will see it in terms of the website that we now have available. There will likely be surveys, there are going to be more public meetings, and there will be opportunity to provide input on the discrete deliverables that are like the building blocks of the master plan as they come along. And then we will have another whole series of public workshops when the draft master plan is compiled. That really, I can't overstate the importance of your engagement at every step of the process. I'm going to try something interactive here. How many think that the current recycling rate in Broward County is meeting the state goal of 75%, with a show of hands? Okay. I'm going to move it down. What about 50%? Is Broward County recycling 50% of the waste that's generated? Okay. We can dream, but we're going to get there. What about 40%? Anybody think we're hitting 40%? What about 30%? All right, some people over here know. The most recent numbers were presented. We're doing a little bit better, but it's in the low 30%, which means that there's great opportunity. And that's why we're here, to get ideas from you that will inform our ideas. We're starting with a clean slate, right? We want to put all of the options, programs, services, and facilities on the table, understand what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable within your communities, and then construct a plan that meets the objectives that I just mentioned. You know, in terms of the goals, we want to develop a plan that's going to get you to 75% as quickly as possible. We also want this to be a regional solution, right? The whole idea of the interlocal agreement is that you all have a lot in common, and working together, there's a lot of benefits, economies of scale, to name one. And as I mentioned, we're gonna be conducting a comprehensive public engagement program, and I will say one of the discrete tasks is developing an education and outreach plan that will be part of the master plan. So all of this is gathering information to help inform the development of the master plan. And as I mentioned earlier, not every municipality in Broward County has signed on to the interlocal agreement, but we hope that the plan is so compelling that we'll be able to make this a county-wide project. That's a consideration for another day. Next slide, please. Okay. There's a lot of talk these days about zero waste. So for any solid waste consultants or service providers that have been in this business for more than a few decades understands that zero waste really started talked about 20 to 30 years ago. And we all know about the life cycle of big ideas. The early adopters were there, and they were very, very energized. It's now come much more into the mainstream. The way that we're approaching zero waste is it's a lens that we're looking through. Right? Let me be clear. We will always need a landfill based on the technologies that we're using today. Right? No matter what we do with the waste, we maximize recycling, we compost everything that we can, there's still going to be some residue that needs to go somewhere. Right? So we're always going to need a landfill. So that doesn't mean that we're not going to strive towards zero waste. Right? The philosophy is, how do we minimize the waste that's generated in the first place? And how do we shift the paradigm from thinking about end-of-pipe solutions and focusing on what's the value of what we throw away? So as I mentioned, there's organics that can be converted to a very valuable product. There's recyclable materials that have value in the marketplace. Yard trash can be converted to beneficial use. So we're going to be looking at all of these elements so that we're really, I said it before, we're shifting the paradigm in how we think about solid waste and how we manage it. And what are we doing through the master plan? We're recommending operations and facilities that are going to meet the needs of the short term, the intermediate term, and the long term for Broward County. Right? We're looking out over the horizon. So the work that we're doing, the work that you all are contributing to, and the elected members of the authority, these are generational decisions that you're being challenged with. And we want there to be robust discussion and great public involvement, because ultimately it's going to affect everybody that lives in Broward County and everybody that visits Broward County. Okay. Next, please. Okay, so these are just some fun facts and figures that came from the State of Florida Department of Environmental Protection website. These are from 2002. The 2003 were just published. These are close enough. But there's a lot of people that live in Broward County, and those people generate a lot of waste. Right? So in the bottom left-hand corner, almost 40.7 million tons of municipal solid waste was collected. That's a lot of waste that's generated per person. Right? And we know that some of it comes from the commercial sector, the industrial sector, and the like, but oftentimes we think of it in terms of, well, how much waste is generated per person per year? Almost 2.5 tons of waste per person. You may not think that we're wasteful, but we're generating a lot of waste. And as I mentioned earlier, in the low 30s, that's the amount of waste that's being recycled. A lot of it is going to a landfill and being composted at the facility, the South Broward facility. Okay, next slide, please. So this information is based on a recent waste composition study. Right? So happens to be the firm that I worked for. We worked with Broward County to analyze what is in the waste, because it's important to understand what is actually there. Right? There are times to ask for opinions, and there are times to actually do the analysis and get the data. And what it shows, so top right-hand corner, that's the 31%, the traditional commodities, the cans and bottles, paper that are recycled. But there's a heck of a lot of waste that's also compostable, that's currently either going to the landfill or going to the waste energy facility. We see this as a tremendous opportunity. There's also a lot of waste that has the potential to be beneficially used, which, based on the waste composition study that was recently completed, there's about 23% that right now doesn't have a good use. We think that there are some strategies to better manage that upstream. But what it tells us is we have the opportunity to get to and exceed 75% recycling within the authority. Next slide, please. There should be a test associated with this slide. Don't worry about the details. The purpose of this slide is just to show that there's a lot of existing infrastructure already to process waste and recyclables, construction and demolition debris in Broward County, whether it's the recycling facility, rooters, that a lot of the recyclable materials go to. The waste energy facility is here. There is a whole lot of other facilities that are either composting on a smaller scale, managing yard trash, or managing construction and demolition debris. So one of the things that we're thinking about, and we're going to try to tease out some feelings from this group and from others, is their understanding of what exists today and whether there is value in using existing infrastructure, or should we be looking at new facilities that are owned, perhaps, or contracted out by the authority. Again, this is all part of the consideration for the master plan. Next slide, please. Okay. So this is really the charge for us. We are looking at services, programs, and facilities that are going to get this authority to more than 75%. Education and outreach is an absolutely critical component of that. We're going to talk about some guiding principles in a moment, but we want to look at, we've already gathered the information, so thank you to all the partner communities that have shared a lot of information that we've asked for in terms of cost of service, level of service, quality of service. But there may be some value in having consistency across all the member communities. And we haven't reached that conclusion, but we want to have a conversation around that. In terms of programs, whether it's compliance or finding incentive programs, we want to meet people where they are and pull the levers that are really important to them to bring them inside what we hope will be a very large tent that is supported by the master plan. And then, of course, the facilities. Some will provide opportunities for going to and dropping off materials. Others are just going to be for processing. There may be new facilities that, well, certainly that we're going to be considering, but we'll be looking at facilities like mixed waste processing. Is that the right way to go? Because really, at the end of the day, we can recommend infrastructure, but it's really what the people do that's most important. So we understand that we have to bring people along and get them engaged so that they can help us collectively be successful. Next slide, please. Okay, so I mentioned some guiding principles. This was very helpful for us, so I thank the executive committee for providing us with the feedback. When we presented these at a meeting a few months ago, they were presented in no particular order. Well, with the exception of one that we were asked to move to the top, and that is controlling your solid waste destiny. Right? So the county has a statutory obligation, a commitment to manage all the wastes that are generated. And as I mentioned at the start, this is a generational project. So I like having that headline that gives us clear guidance in the direction that we're going. We also want to look at long-term disposal solutions. We had a pretty robust conversation around commercially proven technologies. There are a lot of emerging technologies, and we will present all of them, and you will all have a chance to see what is the state of affairs, not just in the United States, but globally. But do we want to hang our hat on a facility that is not yet proven, that it operates continuously, managing municipal solid waste? Ultimately, it's a policy decision, but I can tell you that our recommendation is don't be on the bleeding edge. The risk is too great. We mentioned the zero waste focus earlier. We know that we have to achieve operational excellence, and we talked about it earlier, the harmonization of services. Right? So it's not uncommon for a person to move from one community to another, and it's also not uncommon that the level of service, it's oftentimes the cost of service, is different in different communities. So we are looking at the benefits of working together and having consistency So whether you live in Broward County or you're a visitor to Broward County, the messaging is simple, it's clear, and it's uniform. And ultimately, we're also mindful of best value service, right? We could design a real Cadillac of a system, but if it's not utilized and it's not appreciated by the users, it probably is not the right recommendation. Next slide, please. So these are some key policies. Some we have clear direction on, and others we're gonna continue to have the conversation with the executive committee. But we know that we're looking at a 40-year planning horizon or beyond. And that includes the ramp up to the system, right? We don't snap our fingers and have a new solid waste system. It requires phasing in, and depending on what the components are, we've got to be clear-eyed about what it's going to take to get to that point. You know, we asked the question, should we only be dealing with county waste? And the answer was yes. Our primary focus is dealing with the waste that are generated within Broward County. We asked the question, would you consider disposing of waste out of county? And the answer was yes. Let's keep the options open, recognizing that the authority still has the responsibility. You see, again, the commercially proven technologies. We're trying to lock that down. Very important, not just as a guiding principle, but as a policy. We're still in hurricane season. I keep hearing the lightning detector, right? So we know that we have to deal with debris management. And what does that mean? Because oftentimes it ends up in a landfill, and that fills up capacity that could otherwise be beneficially used. So let's take a look at how we can beneficially use that material. We're going to have a lot of conversations around cost and willingness to pay. And for anybody paying attention to the county to our south, we know that siting is a hot button issue, and we want to have an honest conversation. So where we started was, what should we be considering as buffers, right? As engineers and scientists, we apply screening criteria, right? We use GIS, it's a fun exercise, but we want to know what's most important to this community, right? What should the buffers be around any solid waste facilities, and are there differences whether it's a landfill or recycling facility or something else? We know that environmental justice is a big issue, and we're going to be using that lens as we perform our work. And lastly, we threw it out there because we wanted to test the temperature in terms of mandatory recycling. There are a handful of communities in Florida that have mandatory commercial recycling, and it has moved the needle in terms of recycling rate. So all of these are really geared towards helping us define the work that we're doing. And it's important to note that the reason that we've built the team that we have to serve the authority is our relationships and our work in other communities, both in the United States and North America and around the world. We want to bring best practices to this master plan, right? Why not? But we recognize just because it's worked in one community, it may not work here. But again, what we're trying to do is set the table, put as many different options on that table, and then we can take things off. And that's sort of our prevailing philosophy in developing the master plan. Next slide, please. So what is your role today? It's pretty simple, but maybe it's a big ask. We want your participation. Please don't be shy. There's no judgment in anything you say. If you have questions, please ask your questions. And then we want your feedback, because it's not just for us to hear. We're going to be sharing this with the members of the Technical Advisory Committee. It's going to be shared with the members of the Executive Committee, certainly the Executive Director. But it's this feedback that is going to be so instrumental in making sure that we hear what I like to call the voice of the customer. What is most important to you that will inform our work with the master plan? Okay, next slide, please. I'm going to hand it back to Ashley.
Okay, so we are getting to the interactive part of the evening, and I'm going to give it just a second so that folks can bring some more chairs in. So we have three breakout groups. We have breakout group A, B, and C. Each breakout group has a technical expert and a moderator. If I can get all of our technical experts and moderators to wave their hands so folks know where they are. Um, Each group will discuss the same questions. So we're going to break out the feedback sessions into 2 separate sessions. We're going to have about 20 minutes to discuss a series of questions, and then we will report back to the group so that everybody can kind of get a feel for what the other groups had talked about. And then we will go into a second feedback session. So each session, we will have a separate set of questions that each group will answer, and then we will move into the second one. I'm asking that each group, if we could get someone to volunteer to be a note taker. The responsibilities of the note taker is just to highlight some of the top lines from the discussion. Certainly doesn't have to be a complete readout, but to share what you are hearing, top lines on your paper. And then at the end of the feedback session, we will all report out on the first set of questions, and then we'll go out into feedback session number 2, and we'll report out on those set of questions as well. So if each group could could designate a note taker, I know it's hopefully somebody will step up and be willing to do it. And I just want to also encourage everybody, please participate. This is the whole purpose of this is participation. We want open and honest feedback from the community. So I'm going to turn it over to each of the moderators and we'll get started. Thanks, everyone. And if folks are thirsty, there are some waters back there in the fridge that folks are more than welcome to, and I'll try to bring some around as the discussion has started. Thank you. close this session out in 60 seconds, 1 minute. 1 minute closing time. All right. Let's bring the discussions in the feedback groups to a close for a second. Can I get everybody's attention? Yep. Can I get everybody's attention, please? Everybody's attention, please. Okay. So now we are going to hear from each one of the groups, the note takers. Can I get everybody's attention, please? All right. Thank you. Who's our note taker in group 1? All right. You want to stand up and share with the group?
Okay, so I guess the first question we were all asked is, how much do you think you're paying for services now? So in our group, we were somewhere, can I sit? Thank you. So in our group, we were somewhere between $750 and $950, and learned that actual between all the different cities, it's anywhere between $370 and $530. I guess when we put the little stickers as when we thought it was too high, just right, or too little, the bulk was in just right. What is this? That we should be recycling more things. And then the discussion was, kind of looking at what we pay on a monthly for like cable TV and electric, direct TV, and the much smaller amount that we're paying monthly for solid waste disposal. And so then the conversation was, maybe we'd be willing to pay more for more services for recycling or composting, reusing, or more, just being able to reuse and be more sustainable. Also, it'd be worth also paying maybe some more for investing in I can't remember what I wrote. In the way that we do our solid waste, that on the other side, that could have an adverse effect on the cost of our health and our environment. Recycling glass would also save on our costs because we would not need to keep, replenishing our beaches and what we keep taking for sandbags. Then we were asked the next question, what factors do we think influence cost? And there we had tipping fees and collection costs, need to address recycling of plastics and the market for recyclables, which in turn would bring in the dollars. The number of pickups, and it's not everyone requires the same pickups, the transportation, the amount of solid waste, types of recycling and separation of yard debris. Composting at home would help reduce costs and educate the population about recycling. And then the third question was, should solid waste management be consistent across all the cities and all the different groups? Our group was pretty much in agreement that uniform, mandatory amongst all city and towns in the county, the costs would average out. We talked about we need to have standardized education, standard programs, incentives to create less waste, and enforcement of programs.
Thank you. Okay. Group B, who's our note taker? Is it this gentleman right here? You want to share with the group?
Yeah, we don't have as informed a group as I think A, but at the same time, we did answer or tried to answer in the framework best possible in context and et cetera. But the cost of service was broken down into you have multiple services that are distributed throughout the communities. They're all different times, different pickup rates, different days, et cetera. So there's the cost is broken down and very confused apparently. Then you have the different services. As I mentioned, the value ratio is different to every person. The person who's picking it up gets paid a certain amount. Where the garbage goes, that's another job that nobody wants to do. And but basically, the health issues were, at the top of the list in most people's minds, which is why we're all here. But unfortunately, that's not a factor in most of the major costs that we derive or for the cost from the people that are taking the garbage. The main companies, they're the ones that are benefiting the most to the detriment of most communities. I think that's sort of a general consensus. That's why we're all here. One gentleman mentioned gas turbines. Of course, we're trying to alleviate fossil fuels, but he thinks it's a transition. The comparison between electric or maybe, as she mentioned, a phone bill or a internet service bill. Again, not comparable, apples, oranges, so not really available, I don't think, in most people's minds to be able to the hauling fees. One gentleman, very knowledgeable, mentioned that you have so many times that you pick up the garbage and most of the people just recognize that it's coming from your driveway, that's what's on your tax bill. That's not the be-all, end-all. That's one very small portion of my experience of what happens to garbage when it gets moved to the transfer station, then to the landfill, then all the haulers have to be paid, and of course the main guy who's subcontracting or contracting, he's making the majority of the money. Unfortunately, usually not being recycled, not being returned or reinvested in the community, basically somebody's bank account with a big waste company, I believe. That's my own opinion. That wasn't necessarily stated here. Sorry. All right. So factors basically, what do you do to mitigate those expenses? Well, talk about reducing the redundancy. So simplifying. This is not necessarily what anybody specifically said, but I think we have written little cards that have everybody's ideas. I don't have that in front of me. I just took a general eavesdropping of what people were saying. We had a difficult time. Maybe in the future we could do in single rooms where we can hear better and maybe, whatever. It needs to be a little better organized perhaps to get a more, when you have a group over here who is all in on the knowledge base of what we're trying to discuss here, and then you have a lesser knowledgeable base of individuals, it's again, apples and oranges on how you determine what your final answer is going to be, obviously. So that's to be worked out. That's pretty much it from my point of view, unless anybody else here, we didn't get to hear from everybody. I don't know if everybody felt comfortable in talking.
We do have all of these questions on, there's a poster right here at the sign-in desk, and then there's a poster on each table, and the QR code on that has all of the questions that we're discussing this evening. So if there is somebody here that either didn't feel comfortable or because of the noise wanted to give input based on the questions, all of those, use your camera to click on the QR code, all of the questions that we're discussing here, there's an online form where you can also submit your answers. Okay, Group C.
Hi. How much are we paying now? At first, everyone seemed to be in relative agreement between $30 and $45 a month, but then it was a surprise to see that there are very different rates, anywhere from $272 to $603 per year. Everyone here had pickup 2 times per week and recycling either 1 time per week or 0 times. They felt that $30 to $45 is a good amount for what we're getting right now. So in general, yes, it's just right for the services as is. Further comments, we need to understand that there's no way for garbage, that garbage goes somewhere, and how it's treated has real consequences. And having to make people understand the full journey of their waste, that how it's treated before it gets to the curb drastically affects what comes after. What influences the cost of waste? Lack of scalability, cities purchasing services and contracting together, insurance, personnel, equipment, fuel. Do we have to pay other counties for overflow at any time? Bulk waste pickup? Should our practices be consistent? That depends on the size of the property, or businesses should pay more. But the majority came to that the fees should be based on the type of the waste, but the goal should be the same for everyone. We know that businesses, for sure, but also people are motivated by cost. So perhaps fees can be based on the type and the quantity of waste. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Now we're going to go into feedback session number 2. We have a separate set of questions. Just encourage everyone to continue using the note cards. We are collecting the note cards. The note cards are coded on the back to specific questions so that we make sure we get everybody's feedback. And again, there's also the online form. So we will do breakout session number 2 for about 20 minutes, and then we'll reconvene and share with the larger group on feedback. Thank you. All right. We are going to bring it to a close. Can I get everybody's attention, please? Can I get everybody's attention? All right. Let's start on this side of the room this time. Can I get everybody's attention? Thank you. Okay, let's start over here with Group C. Do we have the same note taker? Awesome. All right.
Wow, quite the reception over here. Okay, what benefits from recycling in our homes or communities? Less trash in the landfills, less incineration, a reevaluation of what you're buying, so consumer awareness. It makes you feel good. Of course, less trash, less incineration means lower pollution, and of course, greenhouse gas and methane. Would you separate your organics? 17 out of 23 people said yes, that's 73%. What would make you participate in recycling? For my city to actually do recycling. Easy, clear means, an easy, clear means of separation, so more than 2 bins. What is recycling? Learning more. Taking a course to get those bins so that you know how to recycle. Confirmation that it gets recycled, so some kind of real rate out there organic waste. Start education programs on waste and global warming. We're out of time, we're out of space, and an image of trash drowning all of us. Get the kids involved. Get rid of plastic bags. Remind customers in the parking lots of supermarkets to grab their reusable bags before they go in. Rewards, discounts, rebates, and further neighborhood competitions. Thanks. I said that.
Thank you. Were you the note taker this time again? Okay, here you go.
I will reiterate what that lovely lady had to say in some instances as well. The ability to understand the educational components, but most folks don't understand the benefits or lack thereof of recycling, and the minimum amount that's being done is somewhat pitiful, but we all don't know that. A lot of people kind of shovel off the responsibility, you know, the yogurt, clean the thing, plastics, etc. So basically a way to do it, all of it, 100% would be ideal, I suppose. That's my own personal opinion. But so residences, you know, most people notice or don't notice. I put down, I didn't notice any difference. As far as the community, you don't see any 5 cent, 10 cent, like in Vermont or other states, they give you an incentive to recycle. Florida, not so much. So a lot of interest in the construction debris being more user-friendly, I think, to reduce maybe mining. That wasn't specified in that context, but I understand you reusing things that we use so much of and waste so much of, and that includes the biomass and the composting. You know, quick turnaround on composting, not available in big giant bladders. Neither is methane off-gassing of landfills, which is one of my pet peeves, but that's besides the point here. So EDU, everybody was talking about it over here. It was EDU in schools, and here as well. The children can put their parents on the pedestal of shame, and I think that's a great way to consider it, but I think the parents need to be more aware, and at the same time, maybe the grocery stores, some of the ones I've visited, they have, you know, hey, like basically in-your-face type of ads and information at the community level. Similarly, I think banks need to be more involved. They're a commercial entity that takes your money and should be responsible in multiple ways, I suppose. Reuse programs, you know, making fuels responsible. You know, incineration is a bad word these days, always has been if anybody really thought about it, but so is smoking and drinking and a lot of other things we do. So let's not even get into guns, shall we? So the health and the environment come into the renewable components in a big way, but it does take the willpower at the community level, and definitely people in the community, that be us, this small portion of people who are trying to figure out what's going on. There needs to be multiples and multiples of this being access for people to understand that their power is in connecting together and building consensus.
Thank you. We'll go over to Group A. Same note taker? Yeah? She's so excited.
Okay, so what specific benefits do you see from recycling in your household or community? And what type of incentives of fees, lower fees, rewards would make you want to do this? So we had financial incentives. There was, the big part, there's the younger generation that realizes how important all of this is in being sustainable and recycling. It's their future, and we all need to, some of us older generations, need to learn from them. Strong education programs, education opportunities in the schools, education incentives, maybe with scholarships attached to them, incentive to recycle to fight against waste to energy or incinerator or any other type of disposal we're not comfortable with, penalties and enforcement, reduce the products that need to be recycled, and separate food waste and yard debris from garbage. Everybody in this group said yes to they would separate food from other garbage if there was organic collection was available. Repurposing and giving back to the community. We said people in general want to do the right thing. They need to build community support and they just don't know and need for program education. Lower grocery costs. And I guess one of the big things was if we do the right things, if we do X, Y, and Z, that's one of the biggest incentives is if we do X, Y, and Z, that we could avoid having an incinerator, waste to energy, or increasing landfills.
Great, thank you. Appreciate all the great feedback. First, just want to say thank you to everybody that participated. I know it was loud in here, so the first piece of feedback is a larger room with more separate spaces next time. So thank you. This is the first meeting of many, and really appreciate all the feedback. We will be collecting the cards and be utilizing that to pull together just a report on all the feedback that we've received. As I mentioned, there is also a QR code on each one of the center tables. That QR code goes to all the questions we discussed tonight, so please feel free to go on, log on, and continue to share additional feedback if you have some. If you have friends that couldn't be here tonight that you think would be good for feedback, please share that with them as well. And then I will hand it over to Daniel for closing pieces and next steps.
Yeah. Likewise. Thank you so much for coming, for sharing your feedback. The vast majority of the folks were fully engaged. They stuck around the whole night, and it's very encouraging. So one thing that we're going to ask of you, talk to your friends, talk to your families. Let them know that there are opportunities for them to provide feedback. There's a few items that are available on the slides around the room. The feedback form is available by clicking on that link, or as Ashley said, go to the QR code. The website has more information for you to learn about this process. It's going to continue to build over the performance of this work. There will be opportunities through the website to provide your feedback on the components of the master plan before it is compiled, after which we will have future workshops. Make sure sure that if you didn't sign in, that you do sign in with your contact information so that we can build our database. In your home community, if you can sign up for alerts, please do so, because we are trying to connect with all the public information officers and other staff. So we're cascading the information and the opportunities to every community. For those that spend time on social media, there's information of locations where you can go as well. Now, for anybody taking pictures of this, this presentation will be placed on the Solid Waste Authority website, and you can go through. The links will be active, and that's where we are. Now, I did want to share, because something that I think about is, okay, so here we are, but where are we going? What are the other components? So I just wanted to share a roadmap with you so that you can see what are the building blocks of the master plan. And please understand that these are not standalone items, although we are treating them as distinct deliverables. But a lot of them will inform another one. So for example, step one, evaluate the existing resources. So again, we sent a lot of data requests around to all the municipalities. All of that information is compiled, and that will be released soon. So we've committed to having a draft over to the authority within the next week. The financial overview, that's an activity that is going to be considered throughout the life of the project, because as we get into the future needs assessment, that's where we're setting the table to understand what does the future look like in terms of population, waste generation, waste composition. Well, what are the opportunities, programs, services, and facilities that will meet that need? Well, each one has a different financial profile. So we're going to be doing modeling. And I wouldn't want you to leave here thinking that we're only concerned about money. We're also concerned about the environmental impact, right? Because every additional truck that we put on the road adds cost, and it also adds emissions, right? So we're going to be looking at what does that profile look like, so that when we're making recommendations, the executive committee is clear-eyed about the trade-offs, right? I said at the beginning, there is no silver bullet, and there is no simple solution, and there is no one solution. We are looking for the most appropriate approach for the county. We live in a world of constraints, right? So there are regulatory requirements and policies. There was a lot of talk about plastic bags. I think everybody knows that our friends in Tallahassee have preempted the municipal leaders from having any restrictions on single-use plastic bags. So some of our recommendations, this I can say for certain, will be what legislative priorities should the member communities consider so that you can speak with one voice. But that's what that task is going to look at. Recommendations and findings, that's where we start to distill some of the information from the prior tasks. I mentioned also, we can't snap our fingers and have a new solid waste system. So we have to, again, be clear-eyed about what is it going to take to go from where we are to where we want to go, because we're going to have to manage expectations. I mentioned earlier education and outreach. So that is distinct and separate from what we're doing tonight. That is an education and outreach plan for all of the members of the authority. So that is going to be informed by best practices, but also understand where the opportunities are. So we've had conversations about the school board. How do we link up with the school board to make sure that there's appropriate curriculum that is valuable and will dovetail into the ultimate, whatever the decisions are in terms of the direction of this master plan. The innovative and future technologies. We want to be looking out to the future to understand how is AI and material classification going to impact our ability to extract material from the waste stream. There are a lot of existing assets in the county today, and we're going to be looking at those areas that can be activated for the benefit of the community members in Broward County and your visitors. So we're looking for those opportunities, and then we're going to compile all of this together in a draft master plan, and we're going to go on a road show. I know we will learn from tonight how we can do better in engaging with the public. But that is, but I hope you don't wait until the draft master plan is presented to provide your feedback. There will be ample opportunity throughout the process, and I encourage you to maximize your involvement, because we hear your voices, and I know we have a lot of members of the executive committee and most likely members of the TAC as well, the Technical Advisory Committee. They're hearing the conversation as well, and I'll go one step further. There are representatives from service providers that are here in the room, and it's important that they hear not just from consultants and electeds, but also from their customers. And then we're going to wrap up the master plan. We're going to hand it over to a very capable authority with great leadership, and they will be able to carry this forward if they make the determination that this is the correct path for the communities. And we hope by the time that we get to that point, any other communities that are not at the table today will see the value in being at the table, right? And I think that's it. So let me come back to thanking all of you for taking time out of your evenings. We all have other things that we could be doing, but I think on behalf of the entire team, I want to thank you for choosing to be here tonight. Okay. We'll get one more slide. One more slide.